This father and son were the final two primitive humans of the Ice Age. To endure the brutal winter, they had no alternative but to consume frozen slabs of raw meat. The father grabbed a portion, masticated it in his mouth, and sensed a freezing shiver across his frame. The young boy was in even poorer condition. Following a single mouthful, his belly at once began rumbling. At that heartbeat, a noisy fart occupied the whole cavern. The father sprinted out of the cavern as quickly as possible. Glancing down, he perceived it was too late. The raw meat had already become green from the foul fart. When he took a nearer sniff, the odor traveled straight to his brain. The primitive man had no alternative but to toss it from the peak. This was not the initial time his son had spoiled their nourishment. He emitted a breath of despair. Right as he intended to rotate, he discovered his son positioned at the cavern mouth. It appeared the boy felt quite remorseful about his pungent farts. The father moved ahead and gripped his son's countenance. They were always able to locate more nourishment. Tracking was their expertise as primitive humans. Consequently, the father, clad in his weathered animal hide and clutching a tall spear, departed on a tracking mission. By nightfall, the primitive man at last came back. He readied a dish of raw meat and set it before his son, while he himself was completely drained. His limbs were puffy and vivid crimson from the chill. But right as the boy intended to dine, his belly began rumbling once more. The father rapidly shoved his son aside and straightway hugged the raw meat. He instructed the boy to exit the cavern, discharge his gas, and then return. In this manner, he effectively protected the nourishment. But the boy was not visible outside. The primitive man perceived something was amiss. He strolled out of the cavern and discovered that it was hailing from the heavens. A flash of lightning hit the primitive man's entrance at an exact slope. The primitive man dashed over, crying out, but found no sign of his son. At this stage, he no longer worried about his own existence and persisted in searching without pause. Just as the primitive man was entirely hopeless, he detected a sound behind him. "Dad," the little boy coasted down from the peak of the cavern as if nothing had occurred. It appeared he had found a limb that had been hit by lightning and, due to wonder, carried it back to the cavern. Staring at the dancing flame before him, the father was confused. This was the initial time they had found fire. Right as he intended to place it in his mouth to sample it, the boy's belly shook. Surprisingly, this time it straightway triggered a massive blast, and the primitive father and son were left with countenances masked in grime. Luckily, however, the boy's fart lit the whole timber stack, providing them a flame to stay cozy. The father thrillfully grabbed his son while the raw meat was seared in the flame. The boy with weak digestion could at last dine on cooked meat. The father and son could at last endure this winter. What was even more amazing was that the pair were not the final primitive humans whatsoever. The father was formerly the most brave soldier in the clan, with the power to battle 100 men alone. Nevertheless, the boy he fathered had naturally weak digestion. Due to his pungent farts, they were kicked out of the clan. To shield his son, the father also abandoned all glory and wealth, along with his rank as the tribal chief.